Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's Redington virtual session. The topic for today's session is Privileged Access Management 101, which will be presented by Deepa and Ashraf. During the session, if you have any questions, we request you to please put them in the Q&A tab on the left, and they will be answered at the end of the session. Deepa, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening to everyone. Welcome to the CyberArk webinar, which is a Privileged Access Management one-to-one session. Here, we will talk about winning security with the Privileged Access Management solution. This would be the agenda which we would follow, and it would be presented by myself, Deepa Abraham, Business Manager from Redington, and my colleague Ashraf Mujawar, Pre-Sales Engineer from Redington. Redington being a value-added distributor, we have partnered with one of the undisputed leader in the privileged access management space. CyberArk, having 5,000 plus customers globally and including over half of the Fortune 500 companies. We have been a CyberArk partner for the last 4 years, and we have been working with many customers in this region to minimize their privileged security risk. Just to give you a stat around Gartner and Forrester, CyberArk has been the market leader in Gartner, Forrester, and KuppingerCole's PAM rankings. With respect to global customers, CyberArk has been there in the top 20 to 25 in the global customers of being in a manufacturer sector, telecom providers, banks, or energy providers. This is just to show how important privileged access management is there in this as one of the top 20 security projects which have been identified by Gartner. And I'm sure most of your customers would be talking about this. Before we start with everything, let's understand why it is important. When we look at the incidents across the globe or in our region, there is a commonality between them. Whether the threat is coming from an external attacker or an incident played by a malicious insider, the common threat at some point or the other in the complete attack process will go after a privileged account. To be very specific, exploiting the privileged accounts, which ultimately are the keys of the IT kingdom. So what most of these organizations rely on is a combination of these type of accounts. So if you ask a customer, a lot of these customers would mention their accounts with different forms of credentials for authentication. For example, they'll talk about a username plus password combination. They'll talk about an API key, certificates, tokens, SSH keys, etc. But these credentials are the way you can access the system. With highly privileged admin rights, these are the kind of accounts which or most of the attackers are after. Because they can get into a system, database, or server, or whatever it may be, with that level of privilege, what makes their objective a lot easier. For example, exfiltration of the data which they're interested in, or even disrupting a business with a complete disruptive based attack, whatever it may be. The first person who will be the road to getting to that attack is a privilege account. And one of the major reasons we have heard from a lot of these customers is this is not a one-time approach. This is going to be a process at multiple times where these types of accounts are going to be targeted at a different point, at a different timeline in the environment till they get to the objective. Since we know why privilege account is important, let's move on to the question, where is the privilege? If you look at an organization, it is there everywhere. Every device that an organization deploys will have a built-in admin account. For example, if you have a look at the on-premise legacy environment, you have an application server, you have a database server, you have a domain controller, everything has an admin account. On top of it, organizations will create more services with personal and privileged accounts to administrators as well as support staff. So this is not assigned only to a system admin users, even to a process. For example, let's take a basic process of web application. Web application that needs to run a query on a database, which has your client information. So what happens? The application authenticates the web to the database, which gives the credentials and permissions and the ability to make changes to the sensitive information, which even makes that application a privilege. So let's see how organizations are adapting to multiple other services. For example, most of these organizations are looking at cloud. Or during this COVID times, one of the conversations where most of the organizations will be having, why not look at cloud? So what happens here? Yes, with respect to an OPEX model for an organization, it's an extremely feasible aspect. But here what happens is attack surface is growing. Be it you take information as infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, or software as a service. Every time you sign up for one or more services, more administrators are being created, which gives more privileged users within an organization. So what we have done is we have taken few customer examples in this region, how we help the customer with multiple benefits and with our solution. For example, one of the major requests from most of the customer is achieving a regulatory compliance. So this is one of the customer, which is a government owned bank with more than 8,000 employees across the region in Middle East. So one of the main challenges they had was they're dealing with a sensitive information on a day-to-day basis, be it with a retail customers or a corporate data. Second thing is, being a bank, they are very strict about imposing policies and procedures to ensure there's a watertight security across all operations. With multiple reviews of their system, that is, for example, they even had a discussion about a digital transformation. With all these aspects and security initiatives in their system, they saw an opportunity to update and improve their security procedures. And every improvement in a security procedures, please understand, it is an operational efficiency for your customer. So how we helped is with an extensive evaluation what the customers have done. And you all are aware in this region, being a bank, how much of evaluation, POC, and procedures are required for them to finalize on a solution. They selected CyberArk and we were able to offer the best practice approach to compliance, enabling the customer to enforce better policy and automate their complete procedures with password replacement. Another benefit what the customer saw was it was a flexible solution with a very quick and a smooth deployment. And the integration of CyberArk with the existing environment was feasible and scalable for them. And this helped the bank to meet the stricter audit requirements, hence security and mitigated risk. The second case study which we have seen is defending against sophisticated attacks. Here we have considered a customer who is a provider for communication solutions and services to enterprise as well as governments. It's a worldwide customer with 22,000 employees in 65 countries. So one of the attacks which they had faced was pass the hash attack. We all are aware of this. This is a threat which is targeted for Windows operating system. So what do? They actually capture the account log on and password credentials of one machine, then use these credentials to authenticate to another machine. And why this name is because the credentials are always present in the hashed form. And that in turn use it as an authenticator to access services to the network. Eventually, the attacker obtains an endpoint of a network and performs, and this approach is usually performed by a user with a local administrative permissions. Here also, they did take few of the measures and to restrict access to for the admin and privilege accounts. But that wasn't enough. Here, what CyberArk has done is there was a very painless and excellent integration with CyberArk across their all admin accounts. And within out of the box itself, CyberArk was enabled the organization to limit the ability of administrators even to accidentally expose their privileged credentials to higher risk computers. The third benefit what the customers saw was we had a unique password change for every privileged user and service accounts, especially for Windows services. For last 2 years, one of the main strategies most of your large enterprise as well as your medium enterprise would be talking about is adoption to cloud. Especially with this current COVID scenario, this has increased. The requirement, the understanding of where the customer wants to go has increased with adoption to cloud. Here, I would be talking about a leading provider of value-added services to telecommunication operators. I'm talking about a customer who has 7,000 plus employees. So one of their strategy and one of the initiative was to move their data center on-premise to cloud. So here, they had an opportunity to build a security infrastructure upfront to manage around 300 plus machines on AWS. But with the current environment, each server had their own SSH key and a local user for development. And obviously, multiple people needed to connect to the servers all the time. Managing security for such privileged accounts turned out to be complex. And here, what CyberArk had done was, they had gone with CyberArk, and what CyberArk has done was every machine deployed were tracked with all the changes and were audited. So what CyberArk in fact did was manage access to the servers on AWS and even on other services and database connections. So depending on the use cases, some applications used SSH keys and others used passwords. And customer was able to do it more efficiently and effectively secure, manage, monitor the control access to SSH keys with respect to the security policy which was initiated. And we were able to implement this within the time frame which the customer had provided. There was, this is also one more thing which most of you will relate to the customers. The security team of any customer is going to say the IT team will complain about this because having an extra step, that is a password, implemented for any direct access to the server has always made the functionality and security measures more effective. Once the users have recognized these benefits, these actions are documented and it's been logged for future references. For example, you know who's being accessed, what, why, across the IT team. So these are the few use cases, and in these top 3 use cases, you can even have a subset use cases. For example, one of your customer could have only achieving the compliance could be important. One of them could, along with securing cloud, digital transformation could be the main initiative. So like this, we have worked with multiple customers in the region with different use cases. Predominantly, we have taken the top 3 and we have presented to you. Right now, I will be passing the stage to Mr. Ashraf, who will help us take us through technically about the product and with the demo. Ashraf, are you there?
Yes, Deepa. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Sure. I hope you can see the screen.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Deepa, for the quick introduction about the product. So let's start for today. How do we reduce the most risk with the least amount of efforts? How do we show the executive team that we are delivering the measurable risk reductions? And very importantly, how are we going to be able to make this security win not result in an operational loss? Let's understand this by prioritizing the privileged access security. Hello everyone, my name is Ashraf Mujawar. I'm a pre-sales engineer from Redington, and join with me today to understand what is actually the privileged access security and what are the best way to implement a privileged access security. So today we are going to talk about what is exactly the privileges are, why important the privileges are, what is exactly the privilege pathway. So if you know about a common attack kill chain, the attack lifecycle, which every intruders or every attackers follow, they always follow a certain kind of kill chain. So initial time, always an initial intrusion is always starts with an endpoint, right? And the very important part, if we talk about from a privilege perspective, more of their focus about compromising any critical system would be a domain controller, because we all know the domain controller is basically a very important critical server on an organization who perform the authentication, who's a central authentication server which connects all our critical and the critical workstations and the servers. So we are going to understand how the attackers normally perform the privilege pathways, going from a domain controllers, and also being a current organizations, the current trend is on the cloud, where all our critical servers in the cloud, how exactly those are also get compromised. So always the initial intrusion is always starts with a phishing attack, because as we all know, the email is the most common attack or common medium to start any kind of attack, and which is the most popular as well. So initially, of course, attacker will send a phishing email to the specific workstation, right, or specific user, maybe HR team, where when a team receives an email, they always tend to click that specific email, and the first thing what that email does, that specific link does, it downloads a specific malware into that machine. And now, since the attacker is already inside a specific workstation, which is already inside an organization, he started doing whatever he meant to be. So if we talk about from the workstation perspective, the first thing what he was trying to do, he will try to steal the admin credentials. He will try to steal the passwords of the servers. For that, he will use most commonly techniques, commonly password dumping techniques, maybe some popular tools like a Mimikatz in order to perform this kind of attack. Then once he got that specific passwords, then he will try to do the lateral movement to go to the other servers in order to reach to the domain controller. That's the ultimate aim. If he could not do that, if he could not find the passwords, the next method would be stealing the hashes of the admin, to which will definitely is going to give them a broader access. Ultimately, when a intruder or the attacker reach to the domain controller, he will be able to perform the attacks like a parse the hash, as Deepa was rightly mentioning about. And of course, most commonly and most popular one is a golden ticket attack. And because all the critical servers and the workstation and the other assets were currently communicating to the domain controller, and once your domain controller is compromised, it is very easy for our attackers to go and do the jumping from one server to the another servers to the workstations. So the lateral movement becomes very much easy for the attackers. And only way to overcome that specific attack is to revamp the entire infrastructure, right? So we have to very much careful about this kind of attacks, and we need to make sure that we have to block the privilege pathway, which basically prevent the attackers or intruders to go from jump to the other servers, to the critical servers, to the workstations. Same thing applies on the workstation which is there in the cloud. Since everybody's started moving towards the cloud, all the critical servers are also in the cloud. Same thing can happen. The attacker can try to reach from internal servers or internal networks and to the cloud, because there's a connectivity is available. He can try to jump from your internal critical servers to the cloud critical servers, and of course your entire infrastructure is now compromised. What to do? How do we understand that this kind of attacks is very important, right? We need to understand, like, how can we prevent against it? The very, very important part to understand is, if you want to prevent, you should thinking like an attacker. If you want to prevent any specific attacks, thinking like an attacker is the very important. Is not like you are going to be attacker. You are doing a bad job for the company. You are having the bad intentions. But yes, once you think like an attacker, you will be able to provide a much better security to your organizations. So let's understand what exactly attackers normally looks in an organization. So they always look for the exposed privilege accounts. Even in fact, if you go today and find out any of the popular known attacks happening all over the world, even the 80 to 85% attacks always involve the privilege escalations, right? So we need to look what are my privilege accounts are basically exposed to the specific attack. The most commonly attacker also does it. He tried to bypass the security controls, which is the account level security controls. He tried to leverage a known attack, which basically helps him to bypass the authentication. And of course, a very important thing attacker will definitely do is he will always try to hide. He will always try to make sure that he will not make put any evidence behind after the attack. So he will always go undetected while abusing this kind of privilege accesses. This is the very important that we should be understanding how the attacker thinks, so that we can take the better measures against it. How do we break that specific attack chain, right? This is also very important to understand, right? So now we're talking about the intruders. The intruders can, possibly can be available at outside, or maybe there may be a possibility that there is a malicious insider is also there, right? So we have to make sure whenever this kind of internal threats or the external threats, which is trying to get to your organizations, very first thing what they do is they try to do the escalation of the privileges, right? Because once they pass that specific stage, they can perform a reconnaissance where they can try to gather as much as information from a network. And once they gather the information, as we have seen the previous slide, it was talking about stealing the credentials, stealing the hashes. Once he has that information, he would be able to do the laterally in the network. And of course, once he's started moving laterally in the network, he can try to do multiple things. He can try to exfiltrate the data, or with the political agendas. If there's a competition needs to bring down, he might also try to disrupt the business, right? So this is something which is very important thing which we need to understand. How can we block this kind of attack chain? So CyberArk helps you to block this attack chain. The CyberArk rightly sits in front before any kind of external or internal attack which is happening and trying to go to the escalated privileges. They have to pass CyberArk, and CyberArk completely secure that. So let's understand, how do we secure it? What are the solutions CyberArk carries in the portfolio in order to give and provide a better security? I am going to give you the better brief introduction of each and every product. Of course, I have also planned to have a small demonstration of each and every modules, okay, which basically give you the better visibility of how exactly the technicality, how exactly the theoretical which we are talking about, how exactly it works in a practical way. Okay, so if we talk about a CyberArk solution, one of the most and the core privilege access security solution, what we talks about is, you can see, it's called the privilege access management, the PAM, right? Which is the most popular. And even CyberArk has been 20 plus years in the market, the pioneers of the PAM technology. They are number one in the whole in the market currently. Very well established product, very much scalable product, and the solutions is been used widely. Most of the organizations using the CyberArk solutions in order to secure their current privilege access layers. So the first module which we're going to talk about is the core privilege access security. In that, we basically have how do we secure your privileges? How do we secure your credentials? That's the most important part we're going to see it. Another thing which we also do, apart from securing your credentials, we also provide a monitoring capability, a management capability of the sessions where the users try to connect to the target machines. We also help you to take a proactive measures if in case of any suspicious activities detected on that specific sessions. That's a whole we cover as a part of a PAM solution. From the advanced part of it, if you see the middle part of the product, we have a standard, which is basically the standard PAM solution. From the advanced perspective, we give you the more capability of controlling the attack which is happening on the domain controllers. As we have speak about the parse the hash vulnerabilities, a golden ticket attack, a silver ticket attack, all those things will be completely prevented by the CyberArk with the module of advanced protection. And it is also very, very important to understand, since we all know that the company's resources, the critical systems through which, as Deepa was trying to explain, right? What are the where the privileges are basically exist. It exists everywhere, right? All our critical devices, it requires to have the privilege accounts. Those privilege accounts can definitely accessible by our own internal employees as well as the third-party vendors, right? So it is very important that we should be giving the access to the remote vendors who's connecting to your organizations and trying to access your internal resources. For that, we have a solution called Alero, where we call it as a remote vendors access to CyberArk. That's the core privilege access security. Apart from that, and the one which we are talking about, the core privilege access security solution from the standard and the Alero perspective, we are completely agentless. We're going to see it when we go for a demo. Let's talk about once we assign the secure access to the target machines, for example, you have the Windows servers, you have the Linux servers. It is very important that when we assign access, we also need to understand how can we provide the list privileges, how can we make sure that we prevent any kind of credential theft protections to that specific workstations. For that, we have a product called Endpoint Privilege Manager. And very, very important, very hot topic which we are talking about is called DevOps environment, right? The DevOps environment is a very, very important. The whole it's been used widely now, and it's becoming a very, very high topic to discuss. So even those environments, Dockers, and everything, we have a lot of secrets management which we have to do, right? So with the help of a CyberArk application access manager, we would be able to help you to secure the credentials which is used by the DevOps environment. And of course, a very important part to understand here is how does the application connects today. Applications are also a very, very important part for the organizations, right? So the applications normally connect to a different applications, right? So basically there is always a two-way communication happening from a front-end application to the back-end applications. So how do we basically secure, or how do we make sure that communication is completely secure? Because what happened exactly in a real-time scenarios where there are a lot of applications who communicates to the back-end databases using the hard-coded credentials. So those hard-coded credentials are basically used by the application team, but they've been there from a long time. They never change those credentials, since changing the credentials will bring down the application connectivity. So they are very scared to change that. But we also need to understand keeping the hard-coded credentials in a plain text format is not going to work out, right? It is always going to create a big issues. If those get compromised, your application connectivity from the front end to database connectivity can completely get compromised, right? So we also have a solution which secures those hard-coded credentials using the application access manager. Our solution can be implemented on-premise, hybrid, in the cloud infrastructure. So we support all kind of methods from a deployment perspective. If you talk about some of the top use cases, CyberArk is the most comprehensive solution which provide you to implement a PAM a very successful way. So there are three key themes on which our CyberArk solution can be deployed. One is defend against the sophisticated attack. Okay, satisfy audit and the regulatory compliances, secure the automation and the transformation. So everybody's talking about, RPA, robotic process automations. So we need to understand not only securing the privilege account is something which is important. We also need to secure the automation of a process, right? We also need to satisfy the regulatory compliances. So on these three themes, our top use cases, our CyberArk implementation depends upon. Apart from that, we also have some of the use cases, which our customers have a requirement about securing their privilege access layer, which is like securing a human and the non-human privilege access, secure the cloud workloads, secure robotic processing automation workloads, automate the privilege task, mitigate the risk by using the just-in-time access, securing the remote offenders, removing the local admin workstations, and securing the DevOps pipeline in the cloud-native environment. CyberArk also provides you the blueprint of how you can build a PAM solution in an organization, which we are going to talk about in the further slides. So what are the solution benefits? Quickly, if you try to understand what is the solution benefits, we basically mitigate the most risk per dollar spent. We reduce the operational overhead and the complexity of managing the privileges, optimize the user experience in a secure manner. We also help to improve the regulatory compliances and create an audit trail. So these are the four important solution benefits we offer as a CyberArk. So the important question is, how can you start today? If you wish to start implementing a PAM solution, it is very important for you to understand where your credentials, how do you secure your credentials, right? Where are your credentials stored? Mostly with this credential, what are the enterprise resources you're going to access? So the first thing, very importantly, what you have to do, you have to secure the credential in a secure storage. So the first thing what we're going to do is CyberArk provides you the web portal. From the web portal, you get the access to the specific web portals where you will see all your privileged accounts, which is getting stored inside a secure vault. This secure vault is basically a CyberArk component, which is exactly like what banks has, right? So banks have a vault, banks have a safe. So we also store all our privilege accounts inside a specific safe, which is those safes are basically inside a specific vault, right? So this is like a software solution entirely. We do not need any kind of hardware, which basically add up additional cost. Our solution is entirely a software and can be deployed on a virtual environment as well. But it is a good practice that vault you should be having a hardware for it. That we can always discuss while we're building or while we implementing the specific CyberArk solution. So the most important part to understand here is how do you protect your credentials, right? So first of all, we store those credentials in the secure vault. It is basically a hardened operating system, completely secure. In fact, there are a lot of organizations who has done the penetration testing on your vault server, which has been approved by the different organizations saying that this is the most secure operating system or specific solutions, which is unbreakable today. Okay, so once we store our privileged credentials into that specific vault solution, first thing what we're going to do is we will rotate the credentials. Once we rotate the credentials, very importantly, the user who was using the privileged accounts earlier, he will not know the password, and very safely we will onboard those credentials into the secure storage, which is called vault. So once this is done, what is the next thing is going to happen is a user would be able to connect to the enterprise resources without even knowing the passwords or the privileged accounts of the to access the specific enterprise resources. So we provide a centralized secure storage for the privileged account credentials and secrets. In fact, we don't only secure the privileged accounts, which is like a username and passwords, we also help you to secure the SSH keys. So there are a lot of organizations who connects to the SSH Linux servers using the SSH keys. We also help you to define a different onboarding rules, and we also have a patented solution through which you will also help you to do the discovery of your existing privileged account that we normally provide to the customer in order to build the use cases without any cost. So as a part of evaluation, we can provide the solution to a customer called DNA, Discovery and Audit. And this solution, customer can run through his own environment to figure it out what are the privileged accounts currently exist in an organizations. We enable end-to-end automation of a privileged security task via REST APIs. We also provide your detailed reporting of who has access to what. So we perform complete risk-based analysis. And of course, we also provide a role-based access control here. Very importantly, let's understand, once you onboard the credential, how does the users are going to connect to this enterprise resources? It's very simple. User will log into the web portal. It's a web portal who can access it by the multiple browser. They can use any browser which they wish to. Mainly, we can once they log in to the web browser, they will be connecting to a target machine, and during the target machine, because since they do not have a username and passwords to connect to enterprise resources, what they are going to do is they will just click on the they will just figure it just identify the account, the privileged account which they want to connect. They're going to see the connect button there. We will see in the demonstration time how exactly the connectivity looks like. Once they click on the connect button, we have a component called session manager, who basically allows the connectivity to the target machine. So it's a kind of a jump server concept, who always the session get established from user's computer to the session manager, and session manager establish the connection to the enterprise resources. This is how we also basically perform the session isolation. And during this connectivity, my session manager communicates to the vault server in order to retrieve the password automatically, and the user connects to a target machine without even entering the username and passwords. So it's a kind of a single sign-on capability which they get along with the session management. And the session which the user is currently connected, it will be completely monitored, and which will be completely reporting what exactly happened during the session. And the good part about is, since we are isolating the session, if a user's computer is compromised, which is running on a specific malware, he will not be able to transmit himself or do any kind of lateral movement from the user's computer to the enterprise resources, because we're performing the session isolation part. And the entire thing is recorded, entire thing can be monitored during that specific session connectivity. So we basically perform the session isolations, we perform that, we track the record and the user activity, and we also help a user to terminate a specific session based on a risk. That is where our threat analytics engine comes into the place. So CyberArk offers a prescriptive approach to maintaining or implementing the successful PAM program. So there are three principal guidelines through which our CyberArk blueprint depends upon. First, and the most important, is prevent a credential theft. Second, stop lateral and a vertical movement. Third will be limit privilege escalation and abuse. Right? So these are the three guiding principles our solution is basically implemented. Let's try to understand what are the 5 basic principles which we follow in order to implement our solution. So there are 5 stages through which we basically implement our solution. The first one is called rapid risk mitigation, which basically helps you to secure the privilege IDs that have the potential to control an entire environment. What we do from the stage one is from the basic PAM implementation, we try to secure your system accounts, your service account by isolating and analyzing the specific sessions and also the rotating the sessions. We will also try to implement the two-factor authentication solution from our C3 alliances or any two-factor authentication solutions in order to provide a rapid risk mitigation point. In the stage two, we try to focus on the core security. So focus on locking down the most universal technology platforms. What exactly we do in the part of a stage two is we try to onboard the accounts. We try to secure the accounts which belong to the web consoles, like we have a AWS infrastructure, Azure environment, and different applications. We also have a C3 alliances with the multiple technology partners, which we normally discuss about it. So these are the things which will be a very, very important part to understand. So these are the specific modules which we normally try to implement as a part of a stage two of a blueprint module. Even you can see the first two stages, we try to concentrate on how can we prevent the credential theft, how can we prevent any kind of passwords which is getting compromised, the credentials which is getting compromised. However, in the stage three, we try to concentrate on the lateral movement, where we try to build the enterprise program. We basically built a pass into the fabric of an enterprise to build a specific security strategy and applications to be secure as per the organization standards. So in the very third stage, we try to concentrate on the hard-coded credentials as our solution application access manager is going to play a very important role here. From the stage 4, we try to mature our program. We try to implement more security controls. Since from the first 3, we have successfully implemented our PAS program, we have to make sure that how can we mature our program more. This is where we try to concentrate on how I expand the advanced security privilege access security controls. Here, we will try to concentrate on the limiting the privilege and escalations and abuse. Here, we are mainly our solution from the endpoint privilege manager, a solution of controlling the endpoint privileges, controlling, providing the theft credential security, and also providing the application control. This is going to play a very important role here. And advanced security, of course, once we have the entire system in place, then we will try to integrate some of the new technologies, try to go and find out some of the enterprise applications on the DevOps level and everything. Then those will be coming up in the advanced security. So from the stage of 5, our blueprint basically helps you to successfully implement a PAM program. It is very important for you to understand, since the CyberArk is there in the market from 20 years, we have so many alliances already been established with the different vendors, different technologies. In fact, there are a lot of vendors who are interested to build an alliance within CyberArk. It's not like CyberArk went and basically built it. So it's all happened from both the points, and we have a very, very good use cases from a different solutions. For example, if we try to take a use case, like we have a use case from a Fortinet firewalls, our solution is entirely supported for all the Fortinet platforms. We can completely onboard the Fortinet accounts, and we can manage it. If you take a solution from Fortinet, like their firewalls, if you take their log management solutions, if you take any kind of monitoring solutions, we do support all kind of things. If you see from the Rapid7 perspective, we also have a complete integration available from Rapid7. There's a proper documentation available. How do we implement any solution from a Rapid7? So this is something which is you can entirely depend upon Rapid7 account. So Rapid7 is basically helps you to store the specific credential to scan a target systems, and those storing of those credentials under Rapid7 is a very, very important part to understand, because the credentials, the privileged accounts credentials, are getting stored in the Rapid7. So we try to eliminate those credentials by introducing our CyberArk Application Access Manager, application to application controls. We also have a good use case from the AWS perspective. We completely manage the cloud accounts also from AWS. We also have a certain use cases from a DO. It's a completely out-of-the-box integrations are available from a two-factor authentication solutions. We also have integrations available from some of the HSM solutions like a Cypher or UTMACO, and of course, a two single sign-on solution also supported like an Okta. For getting a more understanding about what is exactly the ecosystem, what we can entirely support, you can always visit to our site called https://marketplace.cyberark.com. Once you go on that site, you will identify that how many devices we currently support. CyberArk is the only solution who supports the maximum number of applications in the world. We have around more than 650 applications currently supported out of the box. And whichever applications are currently not supported, we have our own patented technology, which is a universal connector through which we are able to build any connector for any devices in the world. Now, I would like to give the small demonstration about the technology, how exactly you can secure the credentials, how exactly you can control the endpoint privileges, and also I would like to give the small demonstration about a remote connectivity from an Alero perspective. So I have 3 demos to be presented. Of course, I am pretty much sure you guys have so many questions from the presentation you might need to ask. Please feel free to go to your left side of the screen. You will find the Q&A section. Just go there and type your queries. We are more than happy to take up the questions from the last 15 minutes from this specific webinar. So let's start from a demo. Okay, so I hope you all can see the screen. I'm specifically going to show you the very basic use cases, how exactly this credential protection, session recording, monitoring, and specific alerting will looks like from a CyberArk perspective. As I already mentioned about you, CyberArk has a very simple approach of implementing a PAM solutions. We have a very good footprint, very good stable solutions are available from a CyberArk perspective, which will help you to do a scale as per the customer requirement. We take all the countermeasures. Since the solution is it's going to store your privileged credentials, we take the critical measures in order to provide a better security. So let's try to understand how a user's experience looks like from when you implement the CyberArk as a solution. So once the CyberArk is implemented in an organizations, of course, you can have a complete customized page as per your requirement. And of course, from the authentication perspective, we support a multiple authentication methods. You can see right now in front of your screen, we have a different authentication mechanisms. The different authentication inputs are available right now. So the first thing which we would like to understand is called CyberArk. CyberArk is basically the local authentication. We also do the integration with different kind of two-factor authentication solutions like Entrust, Gemalto, RSA. We also do the integration from the Radius. We also do the integration with your Active Directory, SAML-based authentications. We do support a lot of different solutions. So first thing, what users are always going to do is they are going to log in with their credentials. Okay, so once you click on the credentials, currently my solution is implemented using the two-factor authentication solutions. We also have a very good integrations available in the region using the Entrust two-factor authentication solution, which is very successful, and a lot of customers are using it. Most of our partners may be knowing it, that we have a very good successful integration with the Entrust. So the same solution has already been implemented in our organizations in order to perform the two-factor authentications. So the users are going to type their Active Directory credentials, because the first factor authentications which we are using is an Active Directory. So once you log in, once you click on the login, users, my CyberArk is going to request my interest solution to provide me a token response. As soon as interest responded to that specific sessions, we will be able to see, okay, this is basically the user who's basically requesting you for a specific response. As you can see, this is my token number. I'm going to put the response right now. As I put the response, I should see that my system is able to log in. So even not here, I'm not only securing my credentials, my privilege accounts, my first level account is also is completely secure by adding the two-factor authentication solution, right? So once the user logs in, because this is a normal user, we do not want a normal user should be able to do any kind of administrative tasks. As I mentioned, we perform the role-based access control, right? So once the user is logged in, whatever users are responsibilities, only those servers he will be able to log in. So as a part of a user, user experience, once the user log into the server, CyberArk server, he just have to find out which account he wants to connect. For example, there's a Windows account with the name of a BB admin, right? That's the privilege account which we have onboarded to CyberArk. It's very easy to onboard as well. You just click on connect user, because since it is a user, it is not an administrator. He will choose which server he wants to log in. Since this is a domain account, you can have the multiple servers can be logged in from a single account because it's a domain. He will just click on the connect button. Now in this process, my solution is going to request my session manager to give the connectivity. And my session manager will go to my CyberArk Vault server, as we have seen in the presentation, and try to retrieve the credentials and allows you to connect to your target machines. So now you can see I'm right now trying to connect to a session. My session get established. So it's automatically, you can see the recording is started, and basically I was able to execute, I was able to log into a target machine. If I just go on my solution, I can see I'm actually logged into a target machine, and the user is a BB admin. So I have not even entered any username and password, and I was able to log into a target machine without entering the credential, and my entire session is right now getting recorded. Okay, so I can even go and do the monitoring of the entire live session. So if I can log in with my administrator account, who have a permission currently to log in and check who's currently doing what, I can just straight away logging in, and I can go to the monitoring section of that specific thing. So you can go to the monitoring section of CyberArk, and then I can see first of all the recordings, and I can also go to the active sessions. So if I go to the active section, I should be able to see that there is a specific session which is currently running. As you can see right now, the BB Vault admin is connected to the specific server, and that is basically just a time which is 3:52 p.m. as you can see my screen, and he can quickly go to the monitor and can do the live monitoring like a CCTV, like the person who's passing by, you can see what exactly been doing. So exactly the live monitoring he can do. And if he sees the suspicious, the user is doing something suspicious, he have a capability to terminate the session immediately as well. Okay, so that's something what we do. But let's say I don't want to monitor it, but I want to take some proactive measures against it. For example, if a user do any kind of suspicious activity on a Windows session or a Linux session, I want him to first of all not execute that activity. And if he try to execute it, I want his session should be immediately disconnected. How do we do it? Very simple. Let's say a user is trying to execute a registry editor, which is one of the critical system application, right? If you try to execute registry editor command, as soon as it does it, you can see my session is automatically terminated. This is the capability that CyberArk have it over the competitions. We don't only do the recording or monitoring of a session, but we also take proactive measures against any kind of suspicious activities. And this normally happens with our threat analytics engine. So this is our threat analytics engine who basically keep on monitoring all the sessions, and if any session claimed to be suspicious, it will be automatically terminate that specific session. And if you go here, there's a specific alert also it will generate. If I go to that specific alert, I can just navigate and I can find out, okay, on 24/20, 24/6, 2020, 3:55, some suspicious activity got executed. If I go to the more details, it tells me the entire incident, what exactly happened. So it tells me that BB Vault user 1, who currently logs into the target machine using the BB admin account, and what he has done, he has executed the registry editor command, because of which the session termination request was sent. So you have an entire visibility, what is this user has been doing currently. And in fact, if you go and now try to refresh the active session, you can see there is no active sessions right now. And if you try to go to the recording section, you will be able to see the latest recording, which is entire recording available for that specific session, along with a risk, which really helps you to do the investigation of what exactly happened during a session. So if I click on that session, it tells me that there has been explore.exe has been executed, command cmd.exe executed, and if I just try to go down, I have run the run command and then I executed the registry editor here, right? So I can even entirely play the specific recording, or I can just straight away go and play the recording when this registry editor command has been executed. So as soon as I click on play, you can see it's trying to go to registry editor directly, bypassing all the times, directly jump to the 3:55 minutes, and my session got disconnected after that, right? So that's how the monitoring and the recording works. Similar way, you can connect to the multiple different kind of attacks, different kind of target enterprise servers. For example, if you want to connect to any kind of web applications or any kind of database servers, you can do that as well. So let's say you want to connect to the FortiGate firewall, okay? So I see there's a FortiGate firewall which is running in an organizations. Or maybe let's say take a scenario where a firewall administrator wants to connect to a firewall. Once a CyberArk is getting implemented, the CyberArk firewall administrator will log into the CyberArk, and once he sees that account, he will just click on opening of that specific session, because it will also go from my CyberArk jump server. And as soon as I try to connect it, as soon as I try to launch it, I can see my session is getting established, and automatically he will open the browser, my session gets recorded, and he's automatically feeding the credentials and allows you to log into the target machines without even user knowing the username and passwords. So that's how easy is the connectivity for becomes the user. So user experience becomes much more easier. In fact, user can use the native tools like a remote desktop connection managers, or any kind of for the SSH, for the Linux commands, for the SSH connectivities, routers. You can use either secure CRT to log into the target machine. You don't have to go to the browser as well. You don't have to log in here and click. You can use your native capabilities like what we have here. You can just click on the connect to that specific sessions. Once you go to that specific session, you can use a different of your credentials. Maybe Vault user 1. Okay. So I try to type it again since I did not type the password. Once you try to type it, instead of you going to the browser, your solution itself is going to ask you the two-factor token here. So every time you're trying to logging in, you're completely secure. As you can see, I'm currently trying to logging in. If I go to the full view session of this, my session is recorded and I'm currently logged into the target machine. And in fact, even using my native clients, I'm still be able to log into a target machine. My entire session is recorded. It will still go from my jump server. That is the reason you see the 14.15 IP address, where my actual server IP address of the target machine is different than what exactly. So IP address, which is the IP address is 172.20.14.21. right? So this is how exactly it's going to work. And in fact, if you want to execute certain commands, you can also block it. If you want to see who is currently logs in, you can do it. And in fact, if you done execute a couple of critical commands, my session gets automatically terminated, even on the native clients as well. So we do support a maximum thing as compared to our competitions, and we also provide you the entire visibility of what is exactly currently happening in your organizations. So that's what about how do we secure the privileged credentials? How do we give the visibility? How do we take a preventive measures on by using the CyberArk privileged account management solution, right? So that's the one part of the solution. The second part of the solution I just want to quickly cover is the endpoint privilege manager. So endpoint privilege manager is basically your endpoint solution which helps you to control the privileges and put the application controls and of course prevent you from any kind of threat attacks, any kind of browser-based attacks or something like that from the agent-based technology. So I have implemented this solution to one of the server. So first of all, you can keep my solution since this is the agent-based kind of a client-server module. There will be agent installed in your machine, which will be running on your machine always. It's a lightweight agent which will be running in your machine. And whatever the policies you push, whatever the application you want to allow him the access, whatever the privileges you want to allow him the access, only that will be applied. Otherwise, your machine would be completely running in the least privilege mode. So this is a completely good solution you can also propose to the customers. So just to give the quick introduction of it. So that's my solution where that's my product. That is where the solution which is currently running. So let's say if I try to execute a Google Chrome command, you can see there's a message which is coming up which says that my application is blocked, and you can also see the CyberArk symbol there because my agent is running and basically blocking that specific solution. So the solution is called Endpoint Privilege Manager. So it is very easy to implement it. It is very easy to create a policy. But if you try to go to the policies and try to create any policies or try to block the access or allow the access, it becomes an entire, it gives the entire control to the IT admins. So as you can see, there are a couple of policies which have been created. You can just see that there are specific policies, like this is a policy which I created for the Chrome. If I just disable this policy, deactivate this policy, and push the policies to the target machine, and try to retrieve the credentials, since it's going to take a couple of seconds to come back, so I'm just forcefully doing it. And now if I try to open the Chrome, you see automatically I can completely controlling what a user can do. So this is a very important solution, not only designed for the servers but also for the workstations, so that if you can control your application, you can agree with me, most of the malwares, most of the ransomwares, they need a privileges to execute themselves, right? If you can control these privileges, if you can control what a user can execute in his laptop, if you have an entire control, the IT have an entire control of it, then definitely you can easily get protected from all the different kind of attack. So that's in a very short, how can you control your list privileges in something. And one more good part about this solution is we can also enable the monitoring mode. Since you don't know what are the critical applications are running on organizations, I can do the monitoring, okay? Just like in the application control inbox, I see there are multiple applications which is getting executed. I can just right click and I can just block, or I can just elevate applications like that. So it's a very, very simple to create a policies. It's very, very simple to give you the visibility of or the control of how you can restrict in specific organizations. You can also have the ransomware policies in order to make sure that if any kind of known ransomwares who's trying to execute, try to perform any kind of encryption, just stop that specific process, we can also do from our endpoint privilege manager. So the last and the most important part, okay, which is newly introduced product from in the CyberArk portfolio, is we call it as an Alero. Alero is basically designed for the remote vendor access. Okay, so let's quickly show how the connectivity looks like, because from the past couple of years we are getting a lot of requests from the customers that they have a lot of remote vendors, and they normally connect to their environment by using either VPN, or maybe it's basically they have some connectivity access through which they basically always logs in. But the problem is our customers always complain that they don't have a visibility because they have a username and password of the VPN. They always try to connect. Okay, what time they're connecting, what they're doing. Of course, we have a recordings available, but we don't have the visibility when to connect. And there is always a bigger problem for a lot of organizations to provide a VPN connectivity, mainly for the banking kind of environment. So for that reason, we have introduced our remote vendor access solution called Alero. It is basically the biometric-based remote secure access solution, which basically help the users who's outside of the organization. In fact, today, employees are outside of the organization. They are working from home. So even those internal employees, if they want to connect, they are also connecting over a VPN. So even for those specific users as well, we can have this Alero solution in order to provide a secure connectivity to the CyberArk web portal. So let's see the quick short demo about the product. So this is basically the Mike's computer which we are having. So first of all, how the user experience looks like. Let's see that. We will just open a browser. We will have our own tenant admin. Since our solution is a SaaS-based solution, it will be available over internet. So what exactly we are going to do? We're going to log into the portal.alero.cyberark.com, whatever the unique URL which you are going to get it. You just have to, if you want to log in, it's because it's basically the biometric-based authentication solution which can log in from your mobile phones. So you need to download the Alero application on a mobile phone. Once you download it, just launch the Alero applications, and you just have to scan the barcode which you're seeing, and you are able to log in inside a solution. As simple as that, right? So instead of you connecting over a VPN, which is also unsecure, you have to open the VPN connections, connect it, and basically you don't have the visibility. Here you have an entire visibility. You can always add the Alero to your different sites. Let's say you have a multi structure environment, you have a different organizations who are working under you, and you have a different CyberArk solution implemented in a different site. You can have a different sites included in a one Alero tenant module. So you can also perform the multiple activities. You can see the Mike is currently logs in because he's got authenticated with his own biometric scan. And of course, as I mentioned, every site needs to have one connector, right? So that connector basically communicates to your core pass, and with the core pass, you will be able to log into the CyberArk web portals. And of course, you can manage a users. So when you click on the users, you will see there are different users who's managed, and these are the internal users currently which you are seeing. You can also go to the vendors, and you can also add the external vendors to it. So that basically there will be a segregation of who are your external vendors, and there will be a segregation of who of your internal employees basically are using the Alero as a solution. And if you're planning to do the invitation, it's very simple. You can just click on invite button. As soon as you click on the invite button, you will see that I want to invite a specific vendor for accessing my core pass solution. So for example, so for that, it's also very easy. You can just fill the details of what exactly the user wants. John Smith. You can just type the company name. For example, john.smith@acme.com. And you can just enter the phone number, what phone number he wants. And of course, he can define like whether to access this, does it require admin access, or it should be having the automated access, what time he should be connecting. So that information also he can do it. You can define the time, what time basically he did the access, and of course you can define which server, which site of pass connectivity this server should be providing. So once this is done, you can also give this user a permissions to allow so that he can invite the other vendors on his behalf. So you can just give one access to the one organization person who's basically your service providers, and he will be the manager of that specific account who will have the permission to invite it. So once you send an invite to that specific user can go ahead and log into his own email account. Once you click on the inbox, he will have the email received like this. He just have to click on the verify email, and then now he will download as a user, as a vendor, he will download the application called CyberArk Alero. He will register his Face ID here. Once he register with his Face ID, he will just have to do his registration, which you will send it to him via email or something like that, or maybe you use a real username and usernames, which is going to work out really well. He will receive the verification code, because since this specific phone number is belong to that specific user, you just type the code which is received by you, and once you've done it, you are able to log in with this. And you just have to click next. So once you click, we can ask you to have your own profile account, all those things. User can do it. If you wish to, he needs to set up one PIN code in case if he lose the token, in case he wants to recover it back. So once he logs in, he just have to scan it. Okay, this is the optional process. You can just skip it, and you are completely registered right now. And now the next process is, since he's already registered, he just have to click on sign in. Once you click on the sign in, he will just launch his application on his mobile phone. Just scan it. He will scan it, and now he's able to log in to CyberArk Pass. He will just click on it, and you see he's automatically logged into the CyberArk portal. He will click on the connect button, and then he will be able to log into a target machine. So as easy as that, we are able to provide him the complete secure access to the organization, so that you can easily connect to a target machines. So you can invite your internal employees, you can invite your external employees, and then you can just allow the secure access to all your remote vendors as well. So that's it about the today's demonstration and the presentation. I hope the session was informative to you, and thank you so much for your time. And we would like to take up any questions which you are currently having from a CyberArk perspective. Okay, so I guess these are the only questions there from my side, Deepa. So I guess we are good for closing the session.
Thank you. Thank you all for attending the session. And we have provided our email IDs. If there's anything, please feel free to contact us. Thank you once again.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day. Stay safe.